The Square Ball Podcast.
Welcome to the show. It's on YouTube. You'll find it in your podcast app. My name's Dan. Michael's with me. Michael, how are you feeling about the legal services industry this week?
Positive. Yeah, I think it's good. Good to get clear of the football so we can focus on it. All your wills, your probate, your lasting powers of attorney, your conveyancing,
right,
your litigation, your commercial dispute resolutions. Good.
Quite important to make a will, isn't it?
That too, yeah.
Yeah.
Why?
Just so your stuff goes to the right person.
Correct.
Yeah. Get it sorted. Now, if you own a house, you should do, shouldn't you?
I suppose so.
Yeah.
How do you buy a house?
What? By the process of conveyancing?
Correct.
Why is that important?
Because I think you need it to legally own it and stuff.
So, you know,
if someone tries to sell you a house for cash
right
in a pub, don't do that. Get it all properly.
As if it were meat from the back of a van.
Get it all properly done.
Right.
With my advice.
Because you don't want you don't want to be living on top of a mine shaft, do you?
Probably not.
No.
It sounds quite cool.
Yeah. Have a well.
But structurally unsound. So
yes. So they'll do all that for you. They do check the mining situation, don't they? That's part of one of the checks in conveyancing.
I think it is.
LeviSolicitors.co.uk/the square ball. We went on quite an adventure there down in mine.
Very good.
But go down mine safely. LeviSolicitors.co.uk/the square ball. 10% discount on your legal fees on their full range of services, which includes some of those that Michael mentioned before. Well done.
Thank you. Chris.
Welcome. Let's talk. Should we talk about football?
Oh, I was going to talk about Japanese knotweed, but okay.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Does that form part of the conveyancing process?
I think it does. It's
right.
one of the things they're very, very worried about. If you find Japanese knotweed, it's like burn the entire housing estate down.
Just to loop in some of our favourite topics, the Aldi near me in Idle, there's a little square of fence on the embankment just as you go towards the car park. And it looks strange. It's like boxed in, maybe 2 meters, 2 meters, 2 meters. Get up close to it. Japanese knotweed inside it. They're containing that bad boy.
They boxed it in?
They boxed it in.
Man marked.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Are you sure that's what it is?
Promise you 100%. There's a notice there that says,
right,
this has got Japanese knotweed in it. Don't do it.
Interesting.
Speaking of Japan.
Right.
We have the
things we've been sent.
Yeah.
Let me go get them. Wait there, boys and girls.
Dan has now left the room to retrieve a package that was sent to us all the way from Japan. Dan, I believe, is in the process of laminating these pictures, potentially.
Well, I also didn't mention Japanese knotweed, so we could segue into this, just to clarify. Although I wish I had. I wish I'd been that smart.
And via the magic of editing, I've rushed back into the room holding what can only be described as pictures of Autanaka. Look at that. So there's, if you're on the video version on YouTube, I'll try and get it so the camera can see it and it's not too shiny.
I think it might be better from my angle.
Right, go on then. No,
it isn't. Oh, it is there. Yeah. Look at that.
Picture of Autanaka on the cover of Tarzan magazine and on the cover of Era, I think it is, magazine. Looking very suave and handsome.
It's weird seeing how confident he looks on these pictures and how shy he is in real life when you see him like being pushed forward to the front of a bus and he's like, oh no.
Look at that on Michael's camera there. That's the real life Japanese envelope with Japanese writing on it.
Very good.
It's exciting, isn't it?
Yeah, if you're on the audio, that's obviously makes no sense to you, but it's some pictures of Autanaka's face anyway. He looks nice.
So these appear to have come from Noriko Takagi and Jeff Buck in Fukuoka.
Oh, okay. Nice. What, is there a letter?
Yes, it says, that's in Japan, by the way.
Yes, I know.
Yeah, just in case. Dear Square Ballman, thanks for keeping this old Leeds fan up to date and feeling connected from far away. As there was recent talk of redecorating the studio, here are 2 pictures of probably our only midfielder to ever make the cover of Era and Tarzan magazines here in Japan. I would have sent you his shirtless Dior ad too. Bloody hell. But that's maybe too distracting for even the straightest of men. Enjoy, MOT. Thanks from Jeff. There we go. So we are going to give a little, I think, glow up to the studio at some point over the summer. And I would like those pictures of Autanaka near me.
That can be arranged, I'm sure.
If that's at all possible. So
just looking at some other people who've been on the cover of Era magazine. Ricky Martin.
Yep.
There's a name I recognise.
Wouldn't want him playing in midfield.
Richard Branson. Again, not a great midfielder, but yeah, there's some interesting people on there. It's the man, isn't he?
Yep. And hopefully we'll be here in August.
I will. We went up. Yeah. We'd probably have a different conversation right now if we were still in the Championship. We'd be going, someone's going to bring 20 million quid for him, but it's fine.
Well, we're richer than God now because we've got 120 million pounds being pumped into the club, Chris, as you covered off in the daily email yesterday at the time of recording. So it would have been Tuesday's daily email talking about the share issue that is the next round of fundraising by the 49ers. It was Barron Cross and the Athletic. Reporting on the amount, is that correct?
Yeah. Is this the biggest whip round of all time?
I don't know. I think they put in a similar amount last time, didn't they? Maybe 12 months ago or thereabouts. So it is a big whip round. I will say that. It
would be interesting to know who's put in how much. We're never going to get that level of transparency, are we?
By the sounds of it,
a leaks document is our best bet.
Well, people were given the option to increase their shareholding and therefore take more shares. And it sounds like it's been reported, it was City AM who reported today that Red Bull haven't put in an additional amount. Obviously, their sponsorship amount is going up anyway, but they've held on to their original shareholding, which has, as a result of issuing more shares, been slightly diluted. So everybody who's an existing shareholder will be diluted slightly by the new issue of shares unless they take up more to the same proportion.
I see.
Yeah. So maybe, I don't know, Jed York puts in 50 million quid or whatever. Keeping things ticking over. Stadium and players would like both.
They've always maintained that we will be at the limits of the PSR stuff, haven't they? Which I guess this will cover off because you can only put in so much, can't you? Even if you have it, you're not allowed to spend it.
Well, you can put it in, but you're only allowed to account for so much for PSR purposes. So
having money you can't spend it much use, though, is it?
Well, yeah, but I think there's quite a cash burden on the business from, well, it's the Radrizzani legacy. Effectively, we backloaded a load of transfers. So even if they've been paid off, quote unquote, from a PSR point of view, like Dan James is nearly paid off from a PSR point of view. We're into the final year of his contract, aren't we? So we must owe 5 million quid on him, something like that, for PSR purposes. But that's not to say that it's all been paid off in the real world. I gather he was one of those deals that got massively backweighted. So we probably owe quite a lot of cash on players still.
The Klarna years, as it'll go down to be known. I suppose it's not entirely about how much you have to spend. It's how you spend it as well. Because we spent it quite poorly when we came back up. When we came up the first time. I have a little bit more faith that Leeds will spend it better this time. Some players I'm looking at, I know we've been linked with half of Europe, basically. Some of them you go, I don't know. I don't know if I fancy Callum Wilson. But I don't know. I have a feeling that we'll probably spend a little bit better than we did last time.
Well, there seems to be more of a team of people, doesn't there? It's the deal this time around, where it felt like it was very heavily Victor Orta's whims. Not saying he didn't use data, because he explained that he did, but it didn't seem quite the industrial scale as other teams where they've got like a whole department and industry surrounding like how to pump numbers into spreadsheets and algorithms, essentially.
Well, I was going to say, surely, and this is the way I understand it in my own mind, is that everyone's got access to the same data, like say on Y-Scout, one of the sort of universal player scouting platforms or its equivalents. So everyone's got access to the same data. It's what you choose to do with the data, which bits of it you want to pull to inform your recruitment. And as we understand it, Brighton and Brentford have both got, I think, they're proprietary algorithms. So basically they belong to the owners of those clubs rather than the clubs themselves. The algorithms that they use are effectively on lockdown. So even the people using them probably don't know what it's looking for to a certain extent. And it sounds like Leeds are probably going to try and go down the same path, because there's a lot of people in the background in the 49ers senior management group who are of data backgrounds. So if there's ever a team of people who are going to lean that way, you would imagine it's the people who are in charge now.
Yeah. Like there's big business now in trading recruitment staff at bigger clubs as much as there is just trading players. Like there's a whole story at the minute in Italy about who's going to be the next director of football at AC Milan, and the favourite is a guy called Lee Congerton, who used to work for Celtic and Leicester, and he worked for Atalanta for a little bit. So like there's like 3 or 4 front runners, but it's sort of front page news because there's so much goes into it now that having someone who's capable of doing the job is, like, doing one job is important, but like I was looking at some of the roles that he's had head of global at Atalanta. What the hell does that even mean? Do you know what I mean? So there's probably so much more to it than we realised the first time round when Victor Orta was basically just saving and rage quitting on Football Manager.
And obviously Scum spent millions of pounds and months of time, didn't they, get recruiting a recruitment person, and then got rid of him straight away, which was good. Money well spent.
Yeah, so it's essentially that's the person who's passing the data, and that's what I always felt like Victor also did, was he used the data available and only looked at the bits that confirmed his pre-existing biases. And I suppose being objective about it is probably a better approach than saying I want a person. Well, it's the same way that they recruited Jesse Marsh, I suppose, almost, because there were a lot of pressing stats, like his teams pressed a lot, but the shape of the football was completely different to Bielsa, who he ultimately succeeded. But they used that. It was a confirmation bias thing, like his teams press a lot, therefore, or maybe we can do the same thing.
Yeah, like you can even see it when you look at players' stats at the end of the season. Someone might score 15 goals. You go, oh, well, he must be good if he scored 15 goals. He might have scored 2 hat-tricks and then a handful of goals when games are already 2-0, 3-0.
Mm-hmm.
But you also might have someone who scored 9 or 10 goals, but they're all match-winning goals. So there's subtle differences that just looking at numbers on a page aren't going to tell you.
Game state, for example, is a bit more important than just bare numbers, right?
I think Tom Cannon, when Sheffield United signed him, people were flagging there that he scored a decent number of goals, but they were basically all penalties, and I think he scored 4 in a game. Something is like, well, doesn't really add up to all that much, really, in terms of, affecting things that other people wouldn't have done. And so it's proved with his one meaningless goal for them that he's managed to notch so far.
But it's interesting, isn't it, how it felt like there was almost no credit in the bank, really, for this ownership going into this last season. Like, you need to deliver, and there was a certain amount of that with Farke, I suppose, as well. Like, you've got the tools at your disposal here, but now they've delivered us the good outcome and everyone's had a nice time. It feels like there's a bit more credit in the bank for both. Like, I think, as you just said then, Chris, I tend to agree. I've got more faith that we'll make a decent enough fist of it this time. Whether it's enough to bridge the gap to the Premier League remains to be seen, but I think the intentions will be correct.
Yeah. I think as well, though, like, you should always have a level of scrutiny and wariness towards people who own football clubs.
Yeah.
Whenever it's your football club, no matter how well they do, you can't just go, right, well, they've got us promoted, so everything's great and everything's fine. Because that's sort of played a part in getting us to where we were with Radrizzani. But there's also obviously reason to be a lot more optimistic this time around, because they seem to know what they're doing a bit more. Probably a lot more, actually, as we'll probably get onto. But yeah, like, I don't think it's unfair to be not giving them too much credit prior to getting promotion this season.
Yeah, the stadium stuff as well, it undoubtedly works in their favour as well, because it was always talked about under Radrizzani, but it never reached the point of timescales and plans and speaking to the council and stuff. It was always like, yeah, we'll do a thing. We've just put these floodlights up for now, but we'll probably build it,
The stupid thing is,
at some point.
The stupid thing is, this discussion goes right back to the Ridsdale days when he was saying we need a bigger stadium to up the income and get more bums on seats, for want of a better phrase. Increase. So in many ways, it was an issue 25 years ago when this discussion happened then, but the option was to chuck all the money at players, which is quite interesting, isn't it? Because there's going to be, as we know, from a PSR point of view, they're going to hopefully throw everything at it to get the players recruited right, but also the stadium is going in parallel to that, whereas before the choice was to spend on players rather than stadium under Ridsdale in the end.
Well, that's because in the Ridsdale era, there was money in the bank was basically what counted. Actual money was what mattered then, whereas now you've got the weird two elements to go, which you can have money but not be allowed to spend it, and you can be compliant in certain regulations but completely skint, and the two are not, they're linked, but they're not exactly parallel anymore, are they?
There's quite a few clubs from that Ridsdale period that have gone on to basically be in financial ruin across Europe, like Leeds, and then there's Fiorentina and Parma, Deportivo to a certain extent, like teams who were all big names around the turn of the century, but wouldn't be what you would call like heritage clubs at the top of Europe. So,
well, transfer market's about to open in another week. I expect things are going to spring into life a little bit more over the course of the next couple of weeks. It's a double window. It's weird, isn't it? It's like 1st of June till about the 15th or 12th or something, and then there's a break for the Club World Cup, which I'd completely forgotten about. And then it starts again after that. So maybe stuff starts moving in June on the transfers front. There's probably no need to start delving into the gossip, because what will happen is we'll say some names and Michael will say, yeah, get him all. Will you be adopting that going into this window?
Although I will say I'm concerned about Callum Wilson's injury record. Same as Chris. You know, you've got to look at that and think maybe not him.
I was going to say, surely if they are crunching numbers and looking at data about availability, that's going to be one of the things that they look at, because we can't afford to have players who are sidelined, especially if we're going right up against the limits. Surely they're not going to do anything like that. Big wages, but there's a risk of permanent injury.
Yeah, you'd hope there's a bit of sense checking on that stuff, because I think that's maybe where. Well, it comes back to Victor's broken toys, doesn't it? But like all recent data maybe suggests they've dropped off.
Yeah.
But when they were 20, they were so good. They were like heading to the top. Like, we can fix him. He just needs to get back on track.
I suppose though, Chris, they are going to be looking for undervalued players to a certain extent, though, in the same way. But hopefully, they're going to look at things that are undervalued that are not the same as Victor did.
Yeah, I don't think that. You also have to look at where that rumor came from. That rumor originally came from TalkSport. So God knows whose agent or vested interest said, "Here, would you stick that story out for us and get a little bit of interest in Callum Wilson?" Who on his day, brilliant, like a decent mid-table Premier League striker, but I can't imagine he's cheap wages, and it's just not. It's not what you need right now. So
the headlines and stuff doing the rounds, though, they are a bit exhausting already, aren't they? I saw one. I think it was via a Facebook group or something, but it was like Leeds make drastic call ahead of Premier League restructure stuff, and it was just the retained list is all the story was. It was just like we've released a load of young players.
Yeah,
and the two
none of it was surprising, was it?
It's like the loanees have gone back, obviously, because we didn't have a deal to buy them at the end of the loan. So that's happened, and then we're still speaking to Byram and Firpo. That's the whole story. And then we've released a load of players who've never kicked a ball for us.
Yeah. I even saw yesterday on, I'll maybe not name the site just in case, there was a story about ex-Leeds striker linked to top flight role. And I was going, who's this? And it was David Healy being linked with the Dundee job.
Right.
Wow. That's what we're all really on edge about this one. I hope he gets the Dundee or Dundee United or whichever job it is.
Yeah, it is technically true, but you're like, come on.
Yeah.
A bit of artistic license has been used there. What else has happened then? What else do we have to update ourselves on? Leicester. They have a train potentially coming down the tracks. Speaking of finance and all that sort of stuff, they say justice delay. Is it justice?
Justice delayed is justice denied.
That's the one. Yeah. Although in this case, I feel like it possibly isn't.
They maybe hopefully they get to have a second miserable season.
Yeah, they're 120 million over their allowable losses.
What?
That's what I read from the BBC thing today.
Yeah,
I mean that's not just a fraction, is it?
No,
because I think weren't Forest and Everton were like in the realm of like 30 to 50 million, weren't they? I think.
Yeah,
and Forest basically because they sold somebody to get back under the limits, said like we were sort of restricted by the market or whatever, and got some of their points back. But that is just an egregious breach to a ridiculous level. Is that?
I think a fair punishment would be a point per £1 million.
You think so?
Yeah. It may be kinder to start them in League One.
Yeah.
and let them get up.
And basically, because they drove a coach and horses through the regulations last time, it was a technicality that they got off on. It was like the wording of the accounting years, like because there's the year Y and then Y-1 last year, -2 year before that, and it was just the way that it was phrased in the regulations was not quite to the liking of the independent disciplinary panel, so they got away with it. But now they've tightened the regulations up, and they're like, "Ha, you're still fucked." So it. You don't, and people will make the same noises. There'll be you shouldn't punish the fans, but the fans have got to enjoy the benefits of them spending all the money, even if it's gone wrong. Were they artificially inflated? Did they artificially inflate and win the championship based on wonky figures? Did they stay up prior to that based on wonky figures? So fuck them.
Fuck them is about right, really. On this.
And they crowed and laughed about it.
I was going to say it does feel different to a situation where a team has had bad ownership that are just rinsing money out of a club, because that's not actually the case here. They've just, again, we're in a situation where it's not an actual shortage of money, it's a breaking of rules is what the issue is. Like I do feel sorry for clubs whose owners run them into the ground and try to sell stadiums and just try to extract as much as they can from it. That's not really the case here, but they've instead just massively flouted all the rules for ages.
Yeah, it's like whenever the it is the other situation where the owners are rinsing the club. You don't have the fans going ha ha ha. You know, the fans at the end of the day. Are
I do recall quite a lot of people laughing at us. In fairness,
oh no,
in those days,
as in fans of the club that it is happening to.
Oh, I see. Yes,
yeah, but yeah, I think fuck them.
Yeah,
to be quite honest.
Yeah, it's hard in a game that is very fundamentally tribalistic to get too upset, especially when they were dick waving about it, like their fans. I've got some bookmarks saved.
Well, it's kind of like when it happened to Derby, didn't it? That, you know, Mel Morris has got the championship on strings and all that sort of stuff, because he was at the forefront of some of this stuff, wasn't he? With selling the ground to himself and all that sort of stuff, the kind of early loopholes of it, and they all thought it was great until he fucked off and left him in a big hole, and then they did go down, and you kind of went, well, you were pleased about this stuff not long ago, so now you get to do this.
And we stepped out of line with the financial regulations and requirements under Bates, and we got hammered for it. And given what happened, it wasn't fair as such, was it? But the intent of it was correct because of the stupidity of the regulations, and they, you know, whether you agree with what they did or not, it was hard to not see what he did as kind of creating a bit of a mess for the club, shall we say.
And what did he do?
It was the failure to secure a CVA in line with the EFL rules to re-enter the league and retake the golden share, Michael.
That was it.
So being handed the golden share came with a price, and that price was 15 points, which they chose not to appeal.
And that was because the people who were owed money were desperate for Ken to stay in charge.
Yeah.
Was the reason, wasn't it?
Yeah. Yeah.
Interesting.
And Leeds were showing no mercy there.
No.
On 2 occasions, essentially. So why should anyone else be?
Yeah. No.
Leicester, though, not really our problem anymore, are they?
No,
not in the coming season anyway.
Although we do have a propaganda show to fill up.
That's true.
So, not necessarily our problem, but something to keep an eye on.
Something to listen to.
But we got some Italian updates, Chris.
Speaking of terrible owners.
Yeah, I've been enjoying putting in the email this week about the ongoing situation in Serie B, where Sampdoria were relegated last week, formerly Andrea Radrizzani's club. Some people still think he's there. He's not. But over the weekend, Brescia, who finished 4 points above Sampdoria, or 3 points above Sampdoria, have been, or are about to be deducted, might actually be by the time this goes out, 4 points for a very sort of, on a technicality relating to tax credits on player salaries in February, which has only come out 4 days after the season ended, and one of the biggest clubs in Italy's been relegated. Anyway.
I mean, okay.
Massimo Cellino is obviously apoplectic about it.
But his tax affairs were always in order, Chris. I can't believe this would be a big cropped up as an issue.
The thing is, there's a chance that this might be a genuine mistake.
It doesn't seem like a 4-point punishment mistake, though, does it? Even if it is one that's against the rules.
The way that it works is you buy these tax credits off companies who buy them up and then use them towards tax payments. I don't really understand how that part works, but this is how it works in Italy anyway. And seemingly the tax credits that were bought by Brescia off this third-party company were non-existent.
Right.
So they tried to apply them to the salary payments for February. It's a lot of boring legal nonsense, basically. But what it now means is that it looks like Brescia are going to be relegated, and then Sampdoria would technically go into a relegation play-out, but that's just not going to happen, because how can you have a play-out whenever teams are going off on or post-season?
Right.
You've got the other two teams that were supposed to be playing. They don't really know what's happening. It's just a whole mess. But then
mess.
The little hand grenade, I was waiting for Radrizzani. I was waiting for Cellino to do something. And on Monday night, he told one of the local papers that he was ready to sell the club right before all this happened, conveniently, and the person that he was going to sell it to was Radrizzani. Now, I don't know if that's true, and there is a slight chance that it could be true, because I know he was looking to get back into...
He's got his number.
...club ownership, but it's just it's a beautiful little way of going, pull the pin off and then just close that door. So it's basically going to be a summer of lawsuits and countersuits, and just everything's going to be spent in a courtroom. And there is a current proposition to up the league to 22 teams and just not relegate Brescia or Sampdoria, which would make things even worse, probably. I actually think they should relegate both of them for it, because Sampdoria are relegated on the pitch. You can relegate Brescia off the pitch. 4 teams go down anyway. 4 teams come up.
Sorted, isn't it?
Yeah.
Chris has tidied it up. Oh, a bit of an update on the Leicester front, by the way. It sounds like Van Nistelrooy might be leaving Leicester. Russell Martin maybe going in.
Interesting. They've clearly wanted rid of Van Nistelrooy for ages, haven't they? I was actually thinking, because he's managed to win a couple of games, hasn't he? I was wondering if they might have been that bit of going,
could he?
Maybe it'll be okay.
I think that probably makes sense for him to leave, because he'll probably get a decent job somewhere in Europe or the bottom end of the Premier League, but probably more so in Europe. And then Russell Martin, Championship, it all kind of works out for the best.
He did a podcast with, I think it was Gary Lineker, fairly recently, which is a good listen. Because obviously he became a little bit of a villain in our story, Russell Martin. But yeah, it's interesting listening to his background.
He was on Match of the Day 2 the other week as well, wasn't he? He's obviously trying to get back in the game, get his face out there again.
Yeah, but it's interesting talking about all the managers that he worked for, and he's got a lot of time for like Paul Lambert and people like that he encountered. I think he only mentions Farke once in passing as having beaten Leeds in the playoffs. He doesn't mention him as having been in his background at all. Ooh.
They weren't friends, were they?
No. Can't imagine they would have been,
no. Yeah, so that's that. Leicester.
Let's see what happens.
Will we keep an eye on the Championship at all this year? Are you sort of keep half an eye on it? Or are we going to become...
I suppose I'm vaguely interested
Premier
to
League
see
pigs?
how the relegated teams do, just because that might be us. So at the start of next season, to see if Southampton just start winning loads of games again and Ipswich are, flying at the top of the league. Because if Ipswich can keep most of their team, you'd imagine they'll be very strong next year. And then maybe they have a second bash at it. Or it might go fully Luton and McKenna ends up getting sacked a few months in because he can't get the momentum back. And
yeah, you'd imagine they'll lose anyone worth having at the top end of the Championship. The majority of them,
that is generally the way of things, isn't it?
Look, we kept some players, didn't we, when we came down? I know some of them were players who turned out to be good rather than players we knew were good, in terms of like Somerville and Georgie, who we didn't fully know if they were actually any use at all, did we, at that point? But yeah, I'll see what happens with it. I'll keep a very vague interest. Mainly on a Tuesday night when I open up FOTMobile and go,
there's
bloody games going on. Jesus, I'm glad that's not us.
Putting on the red button and scoffing at the shoddy coverage.
God, I'm glad we're not playing Preston tonight.
Good. Just with reference to Italy, AC Milan, Aviva Stadium, 9th of August. That'll be fun, I think. Michael, you're cowardly crying off this one.
I'm not. I land like the night before, so
back off holiday at 10 o'clock or something.
Although I have heard a rumour it's going to be a late kickoff now.
Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah, I heard there's going to be an 8 o'clock kickoff.
Which might change things.
A Saturday at the start of August, thousands of Leeds fans descending on Dublin for an 8 o'clock kickoff. I mean,
it'll be friendly enough.
No, but I mean, it's a lot.
Be busy.
Yeah, lively.
I think either way, people are going to be out in Dublin, whether there might just be a little intermediate part where there's a 2-hour football match. But like whether it's 3 o'clock or 8 o'clock, people will be out before and after the game. 8 o'clock seems strange though.
Well, that's good. It's a nice. It feels like a proper step up on, and this is with no offense to Shelbourne or anything like that. But for me, going to Dublin in pre-season was always kind of part and parcel of the deal.
Yeah, it was part like the pre-seasons of older. They were like, we know we've got a lot of fans here, so we'll kind of give them some stuff to watch.
Throw them a bone.
Basically, yeah, you don't have to get on a plane for this one, lads. It's fine.
But if it's Leeds against AC Milan, you imagine the week before the season starts, it's going to be a pretty strong lineup, and it's Aviva Stadium. What's that, 51,000?
And it's going to be 99% Leeds, isn't it?
Well, Dublin's quite an international city, so I'd imagine there would be a small following of AC Milan. The only thing I'm wondering is, what are they going to do with the tickets? Are they going to say that it's a Leeds home match? Because then, jackpot, you've got 40,000+ Leeds fans.
It makes sense to put aside a bit of it for AC Milan and recognise that the vast majority of it is going to be Leeds.
Yeah, because you've got that little silly stand at Lansdowne.
Oh, the little behind the goal.
By the houses, yeah.
The one they weren't allowed to build. Just put them all in there and then have 50,000 Leeds fans at it.
Could be fun. Yeah, it'd be nice to go over to that. But I think you should grow up, Michael, and you should.
Are you going?
Well, we're going on holiday.
Oh, yeah, so you're not going either,
We're going on holiday on the 12th, and it's my son's birthday, potentially that weekend. So
I'm going on holiday some days after.
Yeah.
That's
quite a difficult
That's a
sell.
much worse excuse than mine.
It's quite a difficult sell to have a weekend in Dublin, isn't it? days before you're due to go on your family holiday. I'm thinking mainly from a cost point of view, to be honest.
There is that.
You can't day trip it.
All right.
Fly over that morning, fly out that night. If it's an 8 o'clock kickoff, you're kind of snookered there.
Early flight back, just don't get a hotel.
There is
Stay up all night.
Head to the airport about 3 a.m.
Oh,
Don't ask me how I know this. There is an air coach from Dublin to Belfast every hour on the half hour, right through the night. Get yourself up to Belfast, fly out of Belfast in the morning.
right. There you
Good
go.
work.
In the diary. There you go, Michael. That's what you got to do.
I will, if it turns out it is a late kickoff, I will take a second look.
Right.
Because I do quite fancy it.
Yeah, I think we're going to fly over to Belfast and then probably day trip it because Dublin's extortionate to stay in. So,
all right, then you're not selling it now.
well, like you could stay sort of outside the city, I'm sure, or somewhere that has a decent rail link.
Yeah.
Or just jump on the bus and go back up the road.
Yeah.
After it.
Get in touch. Tell us your plans. How to do it in a Michael-friendly way. Mailbag at the Square Ball.
Has anyone got like a hotel room that they don't mind having someone on the floor of? Because I don't mind being on the floor. That's
You
not
are
a
going to
problem
end
at
up
all.
at someone's house.
And he this is him. This is true. He will do this. Mailbag at the squareball.net. How do we get Michael to Dublin?
If you've got a house or a shed in a bad area of town, I don't mind that. Fine. Let me know.
Right.
It's probably going to be fine, isn't it?
We'll see you there then. We'll be back with another update next week. You're on holiday next week.
Mm-hmm.
Sleeping on the floor? Have you gone somewhere with beds?
Wait and see. I'm with the family, so probably it's going to be a bit more structured.
At least a mattress on the floor.
A bit less of a stray holiday. Yes.
Right, we'll catch you next time.
The Square Ball Podcast.